are listening to the most original talk radio station anywhere. We are LA Talk Radio at latalkradio.com.
You're listening to Fouché Way with Brandon Fouché, right here on LA Talk Radio.
Well, happy Thursday, everyone. I'd like to start by reciting a poem that my father wrote a long time ago. And I relate this to what a dog might be saying to me. It goes like this. If you should ever love me, this is all that I ask, that you not love me for youth or grace, nor pleasing eyes or face, nor any outward part, for these things will fall apart. But if you should ever love me with an open mind. Love me now and all the time. Just love me and not ask why. Just love me till the day love dies. I never knew that poem would have such a significant meaning in my life until I started saving the lives of dogs. And I began loving them with an open mind. Loving them now and all the time. Just loving them till the day love dies. I'm not the only one who feels like that. Everyone who generally takes care of a dog day in and day out feels the same way. I mean, otherwise they wouldn't do it. And over the years, I have seen many dogs come and many dogs go. And what will determine the quality of their life depends on how social they are, how balanced they are, and how they handle stress. And if they are successful in those areas, they can go anywhere and they can do anything with us. And the dog that does not do well lives a life of imprisonment, secluded, a diminished lifestyle. And why does this happen? Because we get dogs for our enjoyment only, to pleasure us, our will, not really thinking about the dog having a will of its own and needs that have to be met at certain times in the development of their mind. You see, the only difference between the cerebral cortex of the human and the dog is the quality and advanced degree of sophistication of the human cortex. The dog's brain is a complex network just like the human brain. The conflict between what a dog wants to do and what we want him to do is played out in the area of the brain known as the hippocampus. Now, the part of the brain which feeds into the body's hormone is the hypothalamus. So if we give a dog a reward, and the reward is less than what the dog is engaged in hormonally, it's in the limbic system that he decides to obey. That's the problem with training and positive reinforcement. You see, one of the fascinating aspects of the mind of the dog is that learning is enhanced when the emotion or interest is aroused. The problem is, how are we arousing them? What are we doing to spark their interest? And how are we tapping into emotions, and what kind of emotions are we producing? This is not a science course today, but I have to come at some of you in a different way to let you know that when I talk about evaluating a dog, and you hear me talk about hormones, pheromones, genetics, and learned behaviors, I'm not just talking gibberish. I'm talking about what is already scientifically known about the dog that I have studied. This is nothing new in the medical field. It's old school knowledge. But the application of the knowledge, the when, the why, and the how to use the scientific information is what's new. So when you hear me talk about setting them up to fail, and why? Because they have been successful with doing what we didn't want them to do. Because we were playing around with a mind that was able to perform complex tasks. We didn't know how to understand and control that mind. We thought that a handful of commands was sufficient enough, along with a treat bag and some positive words, was enough to control a superhero. Well, when dealing with behavior, part of the cerebral cortex is the neocortex, and part of that is the association cortex. That is a part of the brain that receives information from the limbic system, which determines the importance of the information. And then it compares the information with previous experiences and selects a response to that information, and then predicts a consequence. And all this is done by sending chemical messages across synapses at the rate of about 120 meters per second. Billions of cells that have no beginning and no end. And all we want to do is play ball and run up and down an agility course and produce predatory games with toys and teach them to use their mouth to solve problems. And you wonder why we got a problem with our dogs, man. They are much, much more than that. Now remember, the scientists know how this works, but the application of the knowledge, the when, the why, and the how is what's new here. I have a 100-plus-pound German Shepherd that challenged me the other day with domination. He growled at me to back me off of him because of what he was doing. Now, I know that when a dog does this, it's natural if he has been prompted to climb the ladder of hierarchy. With us, by us allowing him to challenge us in rough play, the games that we do, and the tug of war. This is a learned behavior. It takes place in the long-term memory, in the cerebral cortex. The hippocampus is where the instinctive behavior lives. It's responsible for new memory. So when I'm dealing with him, I know I'm dealing with his cerebral cortex. What he has learned before me, the long term, when he started this behavior. This is what I'm working with when I'm working with him from the inside out. That's what I mean when I say working with a dog from the inside out. So I have to stimulate and do something that is instinctive on my part, which will take place in the hippocampus part of his brain so spontaneously that he remembers it without me challenging him for it. This is the when, the why, and the how that I was talking about. This is my method, and this is based on scientific evidence. So if you have messed up and missed the critical times in your dog's development, I'm teaching that it's not too late to help. But because you let it get out of control, it's going to be a little discomforting for you. It's going to take you out of the comfort zone. But it won't be as uncomfortable as it has been, and it surely won't be as long as it has been. And you hear this every week right here with each caller, and today is no different. So my first guest is a gentleman by the name of Sinji with a dog named Jazz, who has discovered the Fouché way, and he's beginning to feel a lot more comfortable. Sinji, how are you doing today?
I'm doing fantastic.
I wanted to have you on because, there are a lot of people like you that have dogs that are biting people and biting other dogs, and we feel like there's nowhere that we can go to get help because we go places, and because it can't be done, and we hear this over and over again, that we kind of give up. But I thought it was interesting with you because you didn't give up. You continued to look because you felt like maybe there was some help for you. And you weren't really looking for training. You were just looking for help. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right, Brendan. And, just to give you a little background, our situation, was that he did my Jazz bit humans, and also aggressive towards dogs.
Mm-hmm.
And this all stemmed from a time at the dog park where he was attacked by another dog and he got bit.
Mm-hmm.
So we believe that was kind of the the cause of where his aggression came from, his fear aggression.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where it all started. And I know I think you mentioned how much we love our dogs. Because of that, we felt, hey, he just needed training, and that we just needed to control this behavior. So essentially, we took him to different trainers to fix the problem, or what we thought was the problem.
Mm-hmm.
And sure enough, that was not the best way, I think.
Right.
Because we went to a trainer. He recommended a few things: obedience, positive reinforcement. We did all that, and he does listen to us, but we never got to address sort of the root of his problem.
Yeah, you were dealing with the symptom.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
So, he listens to me. I mean, he listens to commands and everything because I trained him that way.
Mm-hmm.
But, when he gets into the public, he's fairly aggressive towards others.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when we just needed a different approach.
I want to tell you, I want to stop you there just for a second.
Yeah.
I always talk about the environment having effect on our dogs. And sometimes when things happen in the dog park, when a dog is attacked, emotionally things take place. But other things are associated with the attack that the dog placed on him, and that's the other people that are around within the park. Okay? The dog can associate everything around him with what is happening negatively. And so they can develop a fear of other dogs and also a fear of people. And then on top of that, if we teach them that people are weak because of the way we interact with them, then they have no problem biting someone that makes them feel insecure. And so even though you went to the trainers and it did work, something made you keep looking. That's interesting to me.
Yeah, I think you just get this feeling. I don't know. As an owner, I think you do have a special connection with your dog, and I just felt that, again, the training and the positive reinforcement, the listening was there, but somehow I just couldn't trust my Jazz with other people because I know he would just snap out of nowhere. So I think I don't know. It was just a feeling that I needed, that I had, that led me to do more research and to address his real problem, which was the kind of fear aggression that he had.
Yeah, exactly. And this fear aggression, we've talked about it a few shows ago. Sometimes when we say fear aggression, we just generalize it fear aggression. But there is a learned fear aggression, and there's a genetic fear aggression, And your dog, the reactivity of his nervous system is high, but what he does with that is the learn part. And so when you finally called me and I talked to you about his problem, I know part of you said, I can't believe that this can happen the way I was talking to you.
Yeah.
And it's always about the money, of course, because you've spent money with other people, and if it didn't work, and then hear someone talking to you saying that, first I remember telling you that, of course, I had to see the dog, but it sounds like it's a learned behavior. And you mentioned to me that the other trainer was not able to put the dog with other dogs, and therefore he says, well, the dog is damaged. And in my book, if you can't put him with the other dog, but you don't try, in other words, you don't create a scenario that could possibly go wrong, but not too wrong, then how can you truly know? And that's why I was interested in seeing him. And that might have been what, interest you to move further with me. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I mean, when I first spoke with you, like the approach is completely different. I mean, the trainer that I took to him initially, he used a fence to segregate my dog with the rest of the pack, and that was the sort of the technique that he used to kind of initiate him back into the pack. But he never put him together with the pack. So, maybe he went through about an hour of that, and, my Jazz wouldn't stop barking, stop being aggressive towards the pack. So he just said, well, this is, it's kind of beyond me, is, basically the conclusion that he drew. And I just couldn't believe it. So that's why, I went to you, and, the approach was different. That, again, it was a learned behavior that kind of causes aggression, and then there's a way to unlearn it. Right. So I think you took the time to do it, and you introduced him to the actual pack, and you can see the videos. It's pretty phenomenal. In a couple of hours, he was with the pack. Yeah,
he's with the pack, and I want to tell other people listening, trainers, whatever, behavioralists, doesn't matter. When I talk about learned behaviors, I'm really talking about a dog learning something, but what they're learning is not helping them. And it's actually our fear of not understanding what it is that they're learning that are actually keeping this problem in existence. When we use barriers, your dog, Jazz, is totally familiar with barriers because that's what you've been doing for about a year and a half, separating them. So they know when they're separated that they can perform like that because they know they're not going to get with that other dog. And we're looking to them to make us, the human, feel comfortable enough to put them with other dogs. So we're actually leaving it up to them to decide how this situation is going to play out. Okay? But if you don't understand the parts of the mind that are being stimulated and how to manipulate them, then we become trapped just like the dog. That's the mistake that's made. And so in learning the Fouché way, we have to look at it from a different perspective, something that's much more profound. We have to first understand the kind of creature that we're living with. It's a simple-minded creature, but it's able to perform complex tasks. It has survived for such a long time. A dog is just a wolf in dog's clothing, and that is the apex predator. They have to be intelligent. They have to be smart, and this is why I call them superheroes. So if you know that you're dealing with a superhero in one of my shows, if you're going to control one, it's like dealing with Superman. You better have some kryptonite that's going to be able to control him. And so we could say that kind of what I'm using is the concept of the knowledge, which is kryptonite. And I've always said it's the knowledge that's going to get us through, that's going to keep us in this motion towards no kill and be successful. But it is the knowledge. The nonprofit organization Canine Hope for Improvement is a nonprofit educational program to help people to learn something different about helping their dog. For me to teach you how to do what I do, so that when you pick your dog up from me, you can go home and do the things that I ask you to do and be successful with that. And one of your biggest problems was the leadership of teaching them how to walk. And you're successful with that now. Is that
right? Correct? Yeah. There is a specific strategy involved in, being the leader, while walking the dog. Yep. And we started employing those basically on the day of that. We had a discussion with you, and it was immediate results, really. Right. And again, it's not a very complicated change, but there are these little small things that we just weren't doing. Yeah. So, just simple steps like, making sure you're calm, relaxed, and, you're watching the direction you're going in, and you lead the dog. So, just those small things that you really wouldn't necessarily think about while you're on a stroll, but which is still important.
Yeah, and when I say that dogs are simple-minded creatures and able to perform complex tasks, that's why my methods are simple. Yet, it took 20-something years to learn this simplicity. So, yes, it is complex too, yes, though it's simple, Yeah. And when you came back to my place and you saw your dog with all these dogs, in fact, we have some video on the Facebook of me actually touching your dog first. And I do this with a muzzle because I don't want to have to fight him if he bites me. I just want to exist within the moment. And just my mindset of wanting to only exist with him in the moment, you will see that he allows for me to touch him, without trying to bite me. In other words, he tried to get away, but he didn't try to bite. And how did you feel when you saw him with all those dogs, man?
Oh, I mean, it was incredible. I mean, I couldn't believe it really, because I taught him to stay away from dogs for several years now. I thought that's what he was going to do. He'll be very fearful of it, and actually that's why I insisted on putting the muzzle on when he first met you, because I didn't know what kind of reaction he would have.
Sure.
I thought it was pretty amazing how that happened. And again, this is a journey. It's not just a one-stop shop. I do realize that. So he's going to need to, take his own steps to be fully integrated with the pack.
Yeah, you've only had a few hours,
Yeah.
But what it tells you over the years, it doesn't matter how long it's been, the dog is always trying to right itself. The nature is trying to right itself. And so when you have the proper techniques and the right environment, a controlled situation, you can produce results instantly that can have lasting effects, that the dog will file away and remember. And now all you've got to do is follow the steps that I lay out for you, and you can become successful. Those people that are not successful, or those who deviate from the plan or decide because they've been successful here to implement some of their own issues without first talking to me about it. And I don't want you to do that. And that's why I want you to call me. I tell everyone to call me. It may be difficult to get with me initially, but after we're hooked up, boom, I'm right there for you.
Yep.
Well, Sinji, I want to thank you for coming on, you and your wife coming and bringing your dog Jazz. And I know that you're going to keep up with this because you've come so far now. And I do want to see him again. And there are some other things before I see him I want you to do, and you know what those things are. And then after you do them, call me back, and let's set a time to get Jazz back in here, okay?
Well, absolutely. Thanks for the time, Brandon.
You're very welcome, Sinji. I'll talk to you later.
You do good work. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Okay, take care.
Okay. Well, our next caller is Sarah, whom I'm happy to talk to, with a dog named Rita. Sarah, how are you?
I'm good.
I'm really excited to talk to you because I remember when you called me, I was in the car, and I could barely hear you, but you started telling me about your dog, and just something in your voice, the urgency in your voice, because I know you had tried to reach me before, but, it happens like this. And then when you finally get me, I may say, hey, come in tomorrow, or set up a date at that point.
Right.
So many people are so used to the technology of today, the texting and the emailing, and I get all of that. I'm kind of from the old school. Ring me on the phone, I pick up, tell me what's happening. I say, hey, come in tomorrow, come in today, come in next week. We can do it right there. And a lot of people will do the email thing or the texting and say, well, you didn't get back to me. And, when I'm working with dogs and I've got 30, 40 dogs together that were once killers, it's very difficult for me to start texting. But I could answer the phone and say, hey, what's going on? Let me give you a call back, blah, blah, blah. But you did it. And I was really interested because you're saying, hey, I think you said you listened to the show and you were doing all the things wrong and you were ready to do some of the right things. Can you tell our listeners what this was about with Rita?
Well, right. Rita was, she was always really rambunctious. We got her as a foster, and she was really rambunctious. We'd leave the house and she'd destroy things. Like she would destroy the couch or the molding or our shoes or anything you'd leave out. But we had gotten her to the point that she wasn't doing those things anymore. We didn't have to worry about that. But she was she was really aggressive towards other dogs. She had been with dogs initially, was going to daycare, and then she got kicked out for being aggressive. And we got to this point with her where we existed with her for about 2.5 years. Just like, okay, well, we know if a dog's walking towards us, we just cross the other side of the street, and she can't go to dog park. She can't do any of this stuff. And what we were doing, and part of training her to not, eat the couch was, here's all your toys, here's all, chew this, eat this, and that, that works great. But like that, that was her world though. It was, and since we couldn't take her and have her be around other dogs, we compensated by, we would spend a lot of time, playing catch in the backyard and throwing the toys and chasing her around. And because we thought, well, that's when she's happy,
Yeah. We think happiness. We think happiness.
What was that?
I said we do think that that's happiness. And that's what I was saying in the earlier part of the show, Sarah, that we will create a separate world for the dogs to live in that does not represent socialization outside of our home. And so that...
it was totally separate, like totally separate and unnatural for her. And Craig and I always knew that and we wanted the life for her that a dog is supposed to have, but we didn't know how to give that to her, And
what's something interesting that you mentioned that Craig said is that he was kind of relying on the daycare to fix you guys' problems. Was that it? Did he say that, or did I?
Well, yeah, he when Rita was younger, I was in Minnesota, and Craig was here in California, and Rita, she needed to get socialized with other dogs more, and he was working all the time, and thought, well, we'll just take her to this daycare, and she'll be at this daycare, and that'll solve our problems then, She'll be there, she'll be with the other dogs, and, it'll be great, and everything will be fixed, and we can move on, And instead, it caused more problems, I don't know what happened there, but it caused her to be not just, like, too rambunctious around other dogs, which is what she was before. It caused her to be aggressive towards other dogs.
Yeah, because, every dog is different, just like every person. And as I said earlier in the show, they need certain things to stimulate their mind. And it doesn't, when I say stimulate, I don't necessarily mean chasing things. I mean learning. Because basically what most dogs are learning is what's called learned helplessness, because the things that they're learning is not helping them. It's not helping them to become balanced, And you send the dog away when there are things at home that the dog is not doing properly because of you guys, because, I always say if you had known better, then you probably would have done better. I would like to think so. But you end up being in prison with your dog. And so how did you even hear about me?
I can't I found you online.
Okay.
And I can't remember, it was an organic process, and I can't remember exactly how I came across you. But when I knew I needed to have you see Rita was because we had gotten to the point where it was like, okay, this is just the way she is, and this is how her life is going to be, and we existed like that. Like, I got to the point where I could walk her if she had a gentle leader on. it was still difficult to walk her, but I at least felt confident that I could. And so it was like, well, this is as good as it's going to get. And then I saw your seminar, and then went back and listened to a lot of your radio shows, and there was so many people that as they were talking, I thought, that's Rita that they're describing, or they'd be talking about themselves, and I'd say, oh my God, that's us. Mm-hmm. And immediately, just from listening to your show, I knew that there were so many things that were just wrong for Rita, you know?
Right.
Because both of us had grown up with dogs. We had dogs. We understood dogs, or, so we thought. But, Rita is, she's just different than any other dog we've had. And things that we did with other dogs, it wasn't going to work with her, Mm-hmm. We needed to communicate with her differently, and that's what you're teaching us.
Yeah, I mean, and, when you came, I remember, I think you had the Halti on, and I don't know if you had a prong collar on or not, but I think you had.
No, she actually would pull so hard. Like, we've tried those, and we tried, the choke collars, and she would pull so hard on her walk that her neck would just be like raw, and it would not affect her at all. She'd just be like, pulling you down the path. Didn't matter. Yeah. So we gave up on those a long time ago.
Yeah. Isn't it interesting that you can live with a creature that is so emotionally connected to its environment, okay? Mm-hmm. And we promote all of these predatory instincts within the dog because we've been taught that that's what makes them happy. And then we can live with this dog in this house, and this dog is processing information totally different that we're trying to give them. And so when we go on this walk, which we think, I'm going to take them for a walk and they're going to love it and be outside and smells. And this dog is on a hunting exposition, totally in kill mode. And we don't even understand that that's what's happening. We see it, but we can't believe that just taking a walk is producing this.
Right. Well, and I remember I told you that now that we have her and we're like walking correctly with her, and it's just, I can't even describe how happy it makes me because it's so easy and and like enjoyable. And I was telling you, like, she comes back now and she's exhausted and lays down, but there's a different look in her eye. Like, we used to come home and she would have this, like, she'd be exhausted, but she'd have this crazed look in her eye. Like, she'd just be like crazy, like, that was intense, Right. And now she's equally exhausted, but she's calm. Like, her eyes are calm, and her, besides just being like tired from the walk, she's just calm, and she's like that all the time now. And it's just such a good feeling to think
you're talking
that you can have this with your dog.
You're talking to the dog now.
Right.
You're talking to nature, and you're saying, look, I'm going to take control. You can give it up. And, it's a tough job being an alpha. I ought to know from my dogs, but when you take on that position, and you have that knowledge, you're responsible for that knowledge. When you can effectively control something that you weren't able to control before with your dog finally says, this is what I've been waiting for.
Right.
You see it in their body language, as you mentioned, in her eyes. You can take a 10, 15-minute walk where before you were going for an hour or 45 minutes, and you were exerting physical energy, but you weren't depleting them mentally. Now you're mentally draining her, which is actually physically draining her.
Right.
It's a whole different world when you begin to communicate the way nature intended them to process information. And you brought her back just the other day, and can you see the difference that a second day made with her?
Oh, yeah. I took her in yesterday, and even the difference, because it's been less than a week since she's seen you for the first time. Like, it hasn't even been a full week. But watching the video from the first day she was at your place to the next day, just like her interactions with the other dogs, and having her at home, the way she just listens. Like, anything, it's like, come over here, go out there. It's like she's just like waiting, like waiting for us to let her know what to do, and she just is like so relaxed with that. And it's interesting when you say like, this is what I've been waiting for. I mean, I know when she was a puppy, when she came to us as a foster, and she was in really rough shape when we got her.
Right.
And both of us were like, oh, you'll never be alone or sad or hungry or sick ever again. Like, we're just going to love you so much. And we did all this stuff that was not what she was waiting for. Like, finally, 4 years later, we're doing what she was waiting for when we first got her.
It's so great. I mean, if you go to my Facebook page, you'll see a video of her in the pool. And that's a very informative video there, because we see her in a very shallow pool, which is very easy to get out of. But because they begin to stress, the reactivity of the nervous system is so high, the adrenaline level is so up, that they're only reacting. Okay, they're just reacting. And this is the problem that most dogs have with aggression. They're not thinking, they're just reacting to the emotion. And a simple pool to be able to get out of, it was so difficult for her, but I let her struggle for a while to see if she was going to figure it out and calm down to get out. And she couldn't. Okay? So this lets me know that the right kind of pressure has not been placed on her so that she can begin to calm down and start thinking. But after we got her out, and she's free with the dogs all this time, and she's able to growl or gesture as though she's going to nip or even back away, then I could see the hormones are beginning to start working properly, Right. And you see that on the video. And so when you brought her back the second time, you saw the calmness as though she's been there before.
Oh, my God, it was like a huge difference just from one time to the next. And it was hard to watch that pool video for us because I think both Craig and I had this immediate understanding, like, that's not how dogs are. So, like, we're like, come on, Rita, she should know how to get out of that pool. And I think both of us then just felt bad, like, this is what we've done to our dog. Like, like our dog is not able to just, like, stop and walk out of the pool.
Yeah, we shield them from danger, Sarah. We shield them from the thing that nature says you have to experience in order to become sharp, and that's normal because we do that with our kids. But we're going to have to learn to put together an environment that's controlled where the dog can learn. That's what rehabilitation is about. Teaching a dog to judge the level of aggression, to control the hormones, and to make it work for them. And I believe that Rita's on her way, and that's why I wanted you to come on the show to let people know that even though you spent this much time with your dog secluded, that within one day you can be further than you have been in all the years that you've had the dog.
Well, further than I even imagined we could ever be. Yeah.
Well, I like her. She's just beginning to kind of deal with me. I see her following me. She's not really ready for me to touch, and I'm not ready to do that. I believe that dogs should make the first decision whether they're going to accept you or not, and you have to make yourself present. You got to live within the moment with them, and they will do it. And I think the next time that she comes, she's going to be right there. So I can't wait to see Rita again, Sarah, and say hello to your husband. And thanks for bringing her in. Thanks for loving her enough not to give her up and find help for her.
Oh, yeah. Thank you, Brandon.
You're very welcome. And we will see you soon. Okay?
Yeah.
All right, great. Well, our next caller is Nikki with Valentino. Nikki, how are you?
Hey, I'm good. How are
Okay,
you?
great. You know, we had you on the show before, but I hadn't seen the dog. And we set up a plan for him to come, and there's some video on my Facebook about Valentino, and there was some discrepancy as to, you know, him being with another dog and one dog getting hurt, actually dying, but we don't know if he actually did it. We are assuming that he did because, you know, he has some evidence on him, but it could have very well been a coyote that attacked the smaller dog. And so, you know, because of that, you were feeling, you know, a bit apprehensive about Valentino, and you've been separating him. And he's a dog that was found up in the Ladera Hills, is that correct? Living on his own?
In the Hills area.
Right.
Yeah.
Living in the hills, eating whatever he could find. You know, probably trying to kill rabbits if he could, or just jumping in trash cans or eating carcasses that were left for dead. We don't know. And we don't worry about what we don't know. What we do know is when you brought him in to evaluate him, we saw some very interesting things. And one of the videos that's on the Facebook page is him looking over a little Chihuahua Terrier, right? And you see that guy look up. His name is Zorro. And Zorro looks up at him, man, and snaps at him, right? And I think he jumped maybe 2-3 feet behind him. And he says, I got enough. I'm out of here. And you saw me walk up to the gate, and he took off. Then you saw him with all the dogs. I think we've got about three or four videos of him on the Facebook with all the big pack, acting as if he belongs there. I also saw him walk into the pool very easily. You know, we talked about Rita not being able to get out, but he stepped right in, knowing exactly what he was doing, and stepped right out. You saw him do it a couple of times, saying, hey, I enjoy this. I can accept this. You know, that's huge in terms of his evaluation, for you to see that. How does that make you feel? And those people who know him, how does that make them feel?
Well, the water, you know, I knew he loved water. Okay. So watching him walk in there just warmed my heart, because I saw this dog that I trapped that was so disconnected from everything and all relationships. Now he seeks out affection. He wants to play. He wanted to go in the water. I was waiting to find out what he would do with that pool. Mm-hmm. That's why first thing I asked you was if he would go in the water. You know, it's heartwarming.
Yeah.
And the other thing about Valentino that's different for me is that, you know, in rescue, we deal with a lot of dogs that have been turned into shelters that are aggressive towards other dogs, or they've gotten kennel crazy. And the difference for me with Valentino was he was a street dog that survived for years. So what I was scared about when I called you was I dealing with something, it's almost like a Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde thing. Was he going to snap? Mm-hmm. Because of either, you know, post-traumatic stress or that fight or flight. You know, what was this dark element that is unknown to me that I was dealing with, and did I have to worry about? Like I told you in Leroy, I'm worried about walking down the street and he goes underneath for the throat and rips the throat out, because it's just, I know you think that's funny, but yeah, that was a huge fear of mine, because I can deal with a dog that's going to fight with another dog. But he was like the Yeti to me. You know, he's just off in the bushes, the shadow, dark figure, surviving out there. And, you know, when the incident happened with the Basset Hound where that dog was killed, you know, he had only been off the street for 3 weeks, and he had a broken leg, and he had severely infected ears, and he hadn't had relationships in at least 6 years, because I know he was out there for at least that long. Mm-hmm. That just shows you, you know, these street dogs, they isolate themselves, and they learn to deal with a lot of things that might freak another dog out. Like a skateboarder can go by him, a bicycle can go by him. It doesn't faze him, because he's dealt with that time and time and time again. And I got to move my car. Traffic cops behind me. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so he's a completely different animal for me.
Well, you know, the beautiful thing about Valentino is that he's had experience with both worlds. He's lived with someone, and he's been on his own. He has some street credit, okay? And I can tell when he was walking through my place, the reason why I said he looked like he kind of belonged there and he was controlling himself is because of that. So you don't have a stupid dog there. I mean, I remember when he first came in, he started to walk through my place, and I called him right away, and he turned on a dime.
Yeah.
I knew then I was dealing with a situation that was not genetic, okay, and that the dog was calm enough to have one ear to the stimulant and one ear to me, even though he didn't know me.
Right.
So, you know, the evaluation with him is that this is a dog that has experienced both worlds and that he is balanced with both of them. Now, once a dog has lived with humans and then they live in the wild, we could say, on their own, and then they come back, they're happy to be with humans again. They're a little reserved, but they're happy. But if we begin to start to confine them at that point, after they've experienced both of those two scenarios, then they can become neurotic in terms of trying to escape. If our fear kicks in with confining them, you know, like in a kennel without them getting out, boarding them without them getting out.
Because are you talking about what I said yesterday, how he now wants out. He doesn't want to be confined anymore.
Yeah, he's got everything he needed. You guys showed him the love and all of that. He's complete. Now he's yearning for the freedom. Okay?
Yes.
And that's what we got to give him. And we can't operate, this is very critical now, that we cannot operate out of fear now, because then he will see us as someone who doesn't understand him, and he will revert to whatever is comfortable for him. You see? He'll begin to become uncomfortable, unmanageable. And we don't want that to take place. So you'll find little signs of that, like when you do that. Let's say you got him in a boarding or something, and he doesn't get out, and then you don't go out for a day or two to walk him or something, and then you mix up that routine, and then you start seeing the neurotic behavior start to take place. And that's when we start having the problems, you know? So,
right, and that's the precipice we're on right now.
What do you mean? What's happening?
Which is that's where we are right now with him wanting to, he now needs more mental engagement, which is why I want him to come to your place and fully integrate.
Yeah, we want to get him there. We want to find out more about him. You know, we want to take him back to the environment where he was free, you know, in a controlled way, to see if he would rather follow the pack or if he would rather be there. You see? We need to know what kind of choice he's going to make. If we take a dog back to where we found him and his choice is to be there without being with the pack, then that would not be normal, because the power of the pack is too profound. But when he picks and chooses the pack, then he will have made the choice, and that's how we can tell how intelligent the dog is. You see? And that's what I'm anxious to do with him. He reminds me like one of my guys. He looks just like him. He's just older, you know?
Yeah, that shepherd that won't leave your side?
Yeah, I got a few of those. But, you know, I love shepherds. I love all dogs. I mean, I haven't found one breed that I didn't like. And as I said before, I really think that the connection to me with the shepherd is only that I was mauled when I was young by a police dog. And he broke his tooth off in my leg, and somehow, you know, it's kind of corny, but that dog is something special to me because of that connection, you know. And this is where learned behaviors versus genetic behaviors was born at the time of the bite, the mauling. And so, you know, I do love shepherds, but I absolutely love all dogs, and I have all kinds of dogs that, you know, are different in their own way. You know, there's something about them that you can go inside and begin to go to bed at night and think about that little Chihuahua or that pit bull or that Chow Chow, and there's something about them, you know. And you just can't get away from it. I'm sure Leroy, who works with me, goes home and thinks about some of these dogs too, and they have a special place in his heart. It's just that way, and that's why I love rescuers who rescue dogs, not because of what they look like, but because of what's inside of them, you know? And that's why it's so important for me to teach how to look at differently that thing that you're in love with. And that's why I want to help Valentino as well as Jazz and Rita and all the dogs that have come on the show past, and all the dogs that will be coming on, and the stories and the journeys. And this is your journey with Valentino, and I am so anxious to help you, you know. And I just wanted you to come on and tell our listeners about it, and you did. And I want to thank you. And I will be seeing Valentino, I guess, after the holiday here. And let's get him in, and we'll do some progress with him. And I want everybody to go to the Facebook and take a look at him. Take it the little situation where the little dog jumps at him and see what he does. And then we don't think so much about what happened with the Basset Hound because we really don't know for sure. Okay? And every dog needs a chance. So, once again, thank you for tuning in to the Fouché Way radio show, and we will see you next week, next Thursday at the same time. Thank you.
You're listening to Fouché Way with Brandon Fouché, right here on LA Talk Radio.